It was a busy Wednesday afternoon at a Taco Bell in a small suburban town. The sound of sizzling grills, the murmur of customers chatting, and the clinking of trays filled the air. But amidst the everyday bustle, a moment was about to unfold that would leave the entire restaurant in stunned silence. A mother, exhausted from juggling 2 jobs, walked into the fast food chain holding her young son's hand. She was visibly worn out, her face lined with the fatigue of long hours and little rest. The boy, around 8 years old, had been begging for Taco Bell for days, and today she promised to make his wish come true. But as they approached the counter, the mother's smile faded. She fumbled in her purse, pulling out crumpled bills and change, counting them nervously. She was short. The total came to $12.67, but all she had was $8.25. Her heart sank as she realized she couldn't afford to feed her son. She turned to the boy, trying to hide her disappointment, but his wide eyes were already searching the counter for a solution. The cashier, a young woman with a kind smile, noticed the situation unfolding. She gave a sympathetic look, but it was clear she couldn't do much. In that moment of silence, something unexpected happened. A figure emerged from the corner of the restaurant, casually walking toward the counter. The clinking of his keys against his belt caught the attention of everyone. It was none other than Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood legend and philanthropist. He wasn't there for a photo op or a publicity stunt. He was just there, quietly enjoying his lunch, when the scene unfolded before him. Keanu's face softened as he took in the situation, recognizing the mother's distress and the boy's confused, anxious expression. He stood for a moment, observing the unease that had spread throughout the restaurant. Without saying a word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. The room went still. The mother's heart was racing as she processed what was happening. The cashier and everyone nearby were equally frozen, unsure if what they were witnessing was real. Then, Keanu walked up to the mother and son with a smile that could melt even the coldest hearts. What he did next was nothing short of jaw-dropping, and it would leave everyone there talking for days. The restaurant was quiet now, as all eyes turned to Keanu Reeves. There was an unspoken tension in the air, as if time itself had slowed down. People sat at their tables, holding their breaths, not quite believing what they were seeing. The famous actor, beloved for his humility and kindness, had just walked into the middle of a situation that many would have ignored, but he wasn't just any man. His reputation as one of the nicest celebrities in Hollywood had preceded him, and now, in the most unexpected of places, he was proving that kindness didn't need a red carpet. The mother, still standing frozen in front of the counter, blinked a few times, unsure of what was happening. Her eyes flickered from Keanu's warm smile to the boy's expectant face. Her heart pounded. Was this really happening? Was Keanu Reeves, actually walking up to her? The boy, on the other hand, was too caught up in the shock of the moment to fully comprehend what was going on. He looked from his mother's face to the actor, his little eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and awe. Keanu reached the counter and gently placed a hand on the mother's shoulder, a calm, reassuring touch that seemed to break the tension that had built up in the air. "It's okay," Keanu said, his voice soft yet firm, filled with genuine care. "I'll take care of it." The words seemed to echo in the room, and for a brief moment, everything else seemed to disappear. The mother opened her mouth to protest, but before she could, Keanu held up his hand. "Don't worry," he continued with a smile that could melt anyone's heart. "It's not a problem." The young cashier, still in shock, slowly turned and rang up the order as Keanu handed over his credit card. It wasn't the first time Keanu had helped someone in need, but this felt different. There was something raw, human, and humble about it. It wasn't about publicity or a scripted gesture for a camera. It was simply an act of kindness. As the transaction went through, the mother stood still, her eyes welling up with tears. She couldn't believe what was happening. Couldn't believe that someone who had so much was giving so freely without hesitation. She had heard stories of celebrities being generous, but this was a different level. Keanu turned to the boy, who was still staring up at him in disbelief. He knelt down to the boy's level and placed his hand gently on his shoulder. "You know," Keanu said, his voice warm and inviting, "sometimes life throws challenges at us, and we don't always have the answers. But kindness is something we can always give. It doesn't cost anything, but it can change everything." The boy blinked, taking in the words. He nodded slowly, his face lighting up with a smile that seemed to light up the whole room. Keanu stood up, giving the mother and son a final, encouraging glance. Then, as quietly as he had appeared, he turned and walked back to his seat, continuing his meal as if nothing had happened. The restaurant was eerily silent for a few moments before the spell was broken. A few patrons began whispering among themselves, exchanging glances. One by one, smiles spread across their faces. The mood had shifted. The once awkward, heavy atmosphere had lightened. In that small moment, something bigger than just a lunch had transpired. As the mother and son made their way to the table, the boy's face was beaming with excitement, as though he had just met a real-life superhero. For the mother, it was more than just a free meal. It was a reminder that sometimes, even in the most unlikely of places, there are good people who step up when you need them the most. It was a reminder that kindness could still exist in the world, even when you felt like you had nothing left to give. As they sat down to eat, the mother looked at her son, tears of gratitude welling up in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered to herself, her heart full. The boy smiled back at her. For a moment, everything felt right. But Keanu's gesture had done more than just help them financially. It had shown them the true power of human connection and the impact of simple acts of kindness. Keanu Reeves had just made their day. He had made their world a little brighter. And though he may never know it, his gesture had sparked something in them, a belief in the goodness of others, and the hope that one day they too would be able to pay it forward, just as he had done for them. The rest of the restaurant, too, had been touched. Conversations picked up again, but now there was a new energy in the air, a sense of warmth, a sense of hope, and a belief that the world was still full of people like Keanu, people who could change lives in an instant, with nothing more than a kind heart and an open hand. The restaurant had finally returned to its usual hum, but the air was still thick with a lingering sense of awe. People continued to munch on their tacos and sip on their sodas, but their conversations seemed quieter now, more thoughtful. Yet, the moment was far from over. For the mother and son, something had shifted. They sat at their table, both of them still in shock, as they tried to process the overwhelming kindness they had just witnessed. The boy, who had been so eager to eat moments ago, now sat with his eyes wide, as if trying to hold on to the magic of the moment. He stole glances at his mother, who had barely touched her food, still lost in the kindness that had just been extended to them. The young cashier, still standing at her station, found herself replaying the events in her mind. What had just happened? Was this a dream? She had heard stories about celebrities performing charitable acts, but this was different. This wasn't just about handing over money or taking a photo for Instagram. It was personal. It was real. And she couldn't stop thinking about it. At the back of the restaurant, Keanu had finished his meal and sat, looking out the window, his thoughts seemingly as distant as the setting sun outside. He hadn't intended for any of this to happen. In fact, he had never expected to be noticed or for anyone to acknowledge his quiet gesture. He wasn't a man who craved attention or praise. His kindness, as he often said, was not meant to be a spectacle. It was just part of who he was. But that day, in that small, bustling Taco Bell, something had changed. He didn't know it yet, but his simple act of generosity would ripple out in ways he never could have predicted. As the mother and son gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, they passed by the cashier. The mother smiled softly, her eyes glistening with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. The cashier smiled back, unsure of what more she could say. The words, however, weren't necessary. There was an understanding between them, a silent acknowledgement of the shared experience. As they reached the door, the mother's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from her sister. "How's everything going?" She replied with a single word, "Amazing." As they stepped outside, the boy tugged at her sleeve, excitedly talking about Keanu and how he'd met him. The mother smiled, her heart full. But what she didn't know was that the world was about to find out about the encounter. Unknown to the mother, the cashier had seen the entire exchange. She had been so moved by Keanu's gesture that she had snapped a quick picture of the actor, the mother, and the son. When she had posted it on social media later that day, she had no idea what would happen next. The post went viral. Within hours, people from around the world began to share it, tagging Keanu Reeves and praising him for his incredible kindness. Headlines from news outlets picked up the story, and before long, the event was everywhere. It was trending. People were commenting not only about Keanu's gesture, but also about the impact of simple acts of kindness in a world that often seemed too focused on negativity. The story was everywhere. Keanu Reeves pays for a stranger's lunch at Taco Bell, a heartwarming act of kindness. The mother's phone buzzed again, this time with messages from friends and family. "Is this you?" One message read. "Did this really happen?" Another asked. She smiled as she read the messages, but something inside her stirred. A knot tightened in her chest. She hadn't wanted this attention. She hadn't wanted to be part of a viral story. She hadn't wanted her personal life exposed to the world. She looked at her son, still chattering away about the amazing day he'd had. And yet, as the evening went on and the news cycle moved forward, something profound was taking shape. The kindness of one man had sparked a global conversation, a conversation about the power of compassion, of generosity, and of how a small, selfless gesture could have far-reaching effects. The following days were filled with interviews, both with the mother and the cashier who had witnessed it all. The world couldn't get enough of Keanu's quiet generosity. And as the mother reflected on it all, she realized something. It wasn't just the meal that had been paid for, it was the weight that had been lifted from her shoulders. It was the belief that kindness still existed. The world didn't need more money or fame, it needed more Keanus. She didn't know if she would ever get the chance to thank him personally, but she would never forget the look in his eyes, the warmth of his smile, and the simple words he had shared with her son. Kindness doesn't cost anything, but it can change everything. And as the mother walked through life, she found herself carrying that lesson with her, using it as a guiding principle in her own life, hoping that one day, she too would have the opportunity to pass it forward. But for now, she knew one thing for sure. Keanu had changed her life in a way she couldn't even explain, and his small gesture had inspired not just her, but thousands, maybe millions, of others to look for opportunities to be kind, to look for those quiet, unspoken moments where one simple action could ripple out and change the world. The conclusion of the story is a powerful reminder of the profound impact that simple acts of kindness can have on individuals and the world at large. Keanu Reeves' gesture of paying for a struggling mother and her son's meal at Taco Bell transcends the act itself, becoming a symbol of compassion, humility, and the enduring power of human connection. The mother, initially overwhelmed by her financial struggles, is left with more than just a free meal. She is given a renewed sense of hope and faith in humanity. Her son, who had been eagerly anticipating his Taco Bell treat, is left with a memory of kindness that will likely shape his understanding of generosity and empathy for years to come. The story also highlights the ripple effect of kindness. What began as a quiet, unassuming act in a small suburban Taco Bell quickly became a global conversation about the importance of compassion in a world often dominated by negativity. The cashier, who witnessed the entire event, was so moved that she shared the story on social media, leading to an outpouring of admiration and inspiration from people around the world. This viral moment serves as a testament to how one small act of generosity can inspire countless others to look for opportunities to be kind in their own lives. Keanu Reeves, known for his humility and genuine care for others, embodies the idea that kindness doesn't require grand gestures or public recognition. His simple act of paying for a meal was not done for fame or attention, but out of a sincere desire to help someone in need. This authenticity is what makes the story so impactful. It reminds us that true kindness comes from the heart and can change lives in ways we may never fully understand. The mother's reflection on the event underscores the deeper meaning behind Keanu's gesture. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the emotional weight that was lifted from her shoulders, the reminder that she and her son were not alone in their struggles. Keanu's words to her son, "Kindness doesn't cost anything, but it can change everything," resonate as a universal truth, encouraging readers to carry this lesson forward in their own lives. In the end, the story leaves readers with a sense of inspiration and motivation to act. It challenges us to look for those quiet, unspoken moments where we can make a difference, no matter how small the gesture may seem. Keanu's act of kindness serves as a call to action, urging us to be more aware of the struggles of those around us and to respond with empathy and generosity. The story reminds us that we all have the power to create positive change, one small act at a time, and that these acts can have far-reaching effects, touching lives in ways we may never fully realize. In conclusion, the story of Keanu Reeves' kindness at Taco Bell is more than just a heartwarming anecdote. It is a powerful reminder of the impact we can have on each other's lives. It encourages us to awaken our own good intentions, to be more mindful of the opportunities to help others, and to believe in the transformative power of kindness. As we go about our daily lives, let us carry this lesson with us, striving to be the kind of person who, like Keanu, can make someone's day a little brighter and their world a little better.